Hi, I'm Julie. I'm a motorcycle content creator and traveler based in the southwest of Germany. You can find me under JHH Julie on Instagram and JHH Julie Moto on YouTube.
Welcome to the Real Riders Podcast. My name's Simon Josie, and if this is your first time here, welcome and thanks for listening. As frequent listeners will have noted, Instagram has become this podcast's main social media channel. And while I'm a far from frequent poster myself, I do spend quite a lot of my time there, keeping an eye on former guests and looking out for potential future guests. Till now, the podcast hasn't paid that much attention to visual creatives whose main gig is Instagram. But today's episode is very much focused on someone who mainly creates for Instagram. As you heard, my guest today is Julie, who I first came across maybe 9 months ago. I can't remember exactly when, but I do know that her quirky, humorous videos with an agreeable dose of cat content immediately resonated with me. I found her less than serious approach a breath of fresh air and a pleasant change of pace to a lot of the rather earnest content that one can find when searching Instagram for anything about motorcycles. I reached out to Julie, and today I'm happy to bring our conversation to your ears. As always, if you have the time and inclination, please consider rating or liking the Real Riders Podcast in your favourite podcast app or on YouTube. This will help other listeners find the podcast. Righto, let's get to my talk with Julie. Welcome to the podcast, Julie. Thanks for being my guest, and how are you today?
I'm very well, thanks. The sun is actually shining for once outside, which is a rare occurrence these days, but I'm very happy about it.
Excellent. So we heard right at the top that you live in the southwest of Germany. So my first question has to be, how close to the B500 road in the Black Forest are you?
Actually, right now I'm looking out over my balcony and I can look straight at the Black Forest. So to get up there, for me, it's about 25 minutes, I would say.
And is that a road that you regularly ride on?
To be honest, not regularly because it's not getting me anywhere. I have to go on a daily basis, but it's really close and I do ride it every now and then. For example, if I have to cross the Black Forest, obviously, because it's the main road. So I would be on it if I go visit some friends in Stuttgart where I used to live.
Okay. Yeah. I've done the B500 twice, once this summer and once last summer. And this summer, I may have said on the podcast once before, was an amazing day. Like the weather was just brilliant. I mean, like not a cloud in the sky. And I think it was about 25 or 28 degrees, which is almost a bit warm for me. But it was stunning. And I know a lot of people say, oh, it's not like it used to be. You can't drive as fast, et cetera, et cetera. But it's still, I mean, the surface of the road is gorgeous and it's still a wonderful ride. I guess I have to ask, how did you first become interested in motorcycles?
So I would say it runs in the family. Obviously, here we live in a small town, and both my parents, the first vehicle that they would have as teenagers would be a small motorcycle, but not like it is for me today. Like as a recreational thing, it's simply been like a mode of transport. So as soon as they were 16, they started riding motorcycles to get to work in their apprenticeships. So my mom had a Honda and my dad, I think his first small bike, I don't even really know, to be honest, but he's also a Honda fan. So I reckon it was something like that. And that's how we got started. They both ride motorcycles. My dad still rides today. Not as much, to be honest, but so that's how I started out, and I was riding on the back of his bike a lot as a kid.
Okay. And when did you get your own license?
That's pretty much exactly 4 years ago in August 2020.
Okay. And maybe because I had a son who went through the German licensing process, and it's quite thorough, but maybe just for people who don't know, what do you actually have to do in Germany to get a motorcycle license?
So here, no matter if it's motorcycle or car, you have to go to a driving school, and we have them everywhere. So it's just like a company offering basically to teach you. And it starts out with the theoretical questions and just what are the rules in general traffic? How do you have to behave? Things like that. And then once you've done a little bit of this, you actually go to the practical driving where it's like one on one lessons. You have the driver next to you, he has his own pedals, and you just go out on the road and they explain to you how to use a clutch, how to hold the steering wheel, like basic one on one training. And you have to do a minimum of 12 hours on the Autobahn, like the highway, overland driving, which would be something like the B500, for example. And you have to go into cities where you have to pay attention to all the signs and just traffic in general, being around other people on the road.
Mm. And did you get your car driving license first, or did you get the motorcycle and the car at the same time? How does it work?
So once I was 17, I started with the car license. You can do it once you're 17 and then drive with a designated co-driver, which was my parents. They have to be in the car, but you are the one that drives up until you're 18, and then you can drive on your own. So that's what I did first. And I kept pushing the motorcycle license back. I actually went to New Zealand for a year to do some work and travel after graduating. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to do it now because I won't need it there. And it cost a lot of money. And then life happened. I went to school, lived somewhere else. And yeah, it took me up until the pandemic to finally get started with riding a motorcycle.
Yeah, because I've seen the driving schools teaching motorcyclists on the road where they have the motorcycle in front and then the instructor behind driving in a car, and signs everywhere saying that there's someone learning to ride a motorcycle. I see that quite often. I mean, do you think, I don't know, it's I guess it's hard to judge because we only typically get licensed in one country, but what's your feeling about the German licensing process? Is it fit for purpose? Do you think it gives you a good, solid sort of training to drive on the roads here?
I mean, obviously, I only personally know this system. I do think with just the density of traffic that we have here, I couldn't really imagine a system like maybe in the US where you just go out, you get a car, and they just put you into real life, and you have to like try your own luck and not hit anyone or get hit. So I think it makes a lot of sense to have like the one-on-one system, and you really like someone takes you by your hand and is able to step on the brakes or grab the steering wheel in situations. But we do recently have issues with just the price going up. Like young people nowadays, I mean, I'm basically old now. It's been 10 years since I got my car license. They have to pay up to 3,000 or over 3,000 euros just for the car license. And that's a lot of money. And then the quality of driving schools is not always good. There is a lot of times where people have to do several attempts to get their exam done, and it costs about 500 euros each time you try extra. So, yeah, I think it's good, but like with every industry, you have to perhaps regulate if the people providing the service are actually good or if they might be trying to just make money. So, it doesn't apply to everyone, but there are some black sheep as well, I would say.
Sure. You mentioned New Zealand. Were you driving in New Zealand, or were you horrified by the way people drive in New Zealand? I mean,
No.
I grew up in New Zealand. I'm very familiar with the way people drive in New Zealand. I don't think it's the worst place in the world, but I'm pretty sure it's not the best place in the world. And there are a lot of accidents per head of population in New Zealand. It's a bit scary. I mean, what was your experience?
So I did go there when it was September 2014. That's when I went over. And I used to be in New Zealand before when I was 16, just as a student, international student for 3 months. So I went to my old host family and ended up buying a van with the host dad. He's a mechanic, so he helped me pick out a car that would hopefully not fall apart immediately. And then I was out driving. It was an automatic transmission, which I guess helped a little bit just because it's a larger car and new surroundings. But we went everywhere, like small roads, gravel roads, and I think driving there was quite easy, to be honest. I mean, you do have to pay attention to not get distracted by the beautiful landscape sometimes. And yeah, I never had any issues with driving on the left and never really any dangerous situations, to be honest. But I also have some friends from New Zealand, and I know the way they got to drive a car is, I don't know if that's exactly the case, but you start learning with like your parents or just someone by your side. So it's not like a school like what we have in Germany.
Yeah, yeah, that was absolutely my experience. My father taught me to drive a car, and
Mm,
when it came to motorcycles, you basically, as long as your first bike is under, okay, this is back in the day. It's different now, but when I was learning, and we're talking a long time ago here, um,
mm,
you basically were able to buy a bike no bigger than 250 cc's, and
mhm,
then good luck. Go out. Hopefully, you don't kill yourself. And then after a little while, you could sit to the test to get the provisional license. And then I think 6 months later, as long as you hadn't killed yourself by then, you could get a full license. And you could shorten that process
mm.
by doing a defensive driving course specifically for motorcycles, which
Okay.
is what I did. And then I got a bike that was bigger than 250 cc. But
Mm.
yeah, we're talking 40 years ago, mumble. So it's probably bit different now, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, for me, it's also 10 years ago, but I remember when I was an international student, I had some friends, and I still talk to him today. I just talked to him the other day. His name's Nathan, and he had, I might say it wrong, but I think he had a Honda, was it a Monkey? So he started with a really small bike when he was 16. And then gradually over the years, obviously, he's gone through the different classes. And when I was in New Zealand for the 1 year doing the work and travel, I actually thought about maybe doing my license in New Zealand. But then I looked at the system and I realized that I had to go through all these different tiers and it wouldn't make sense because I couldn't just basically get a full license and take it home with me.
Yeah.
So I ended up not following through.
Yeah. Just obviously curious, where did you stay when you were a student? Which part of New Zealand?
So I was in Auckland and I stayed in, I hope I'm still saying it right, Te Atatu Peninsula.
Okay.
Yeah.
Out on the west, close to the west coast,
Hmm.
and yeah,
Yeah.
the black sand beaches, cool. And when you worked for a year there, whereabouts were you based?
So I flew to Auckland, stayed with my host family, and then a friend from Germany joined about 4 weeks later. And then we basically just started driving. And we did actually have trouble finding like proper full time jobs. We did try a couple of times, but we both worked the full summer prior. So we did have savings. And so we just decided to do farm work where you basically work half the day and then you get like lodging and food for free. And it's usually very alternative people, small farms. And that's what we did just to like keep the costs low. And then we traveled just staying on DOC campsites and trying to keep the budget as low as possible and enjoying the time.
I've done quite a bit of travel on the South Island, even though I'm from the north, and a
Mm.
reasonable amount in the North Island. But yeah, you probably know the country almost better than me. So excellent. Maybe we should move on to another topic. Um, what sort of motorcycle rider would you describe yourself as? What kind of riding do you like to do?
Considering I bought the Africa Twin as my first bike, I think I skipped like this whole, like most young people here, if they get their first bike, it's something like a supermoto and then maybe like a sports bike. And I totally skipped that phase. And I don't think I ever really want to go to it because I feel like the ergonomics of sport bikes are just not for me. I want something that I can sit comfortably on for like hours with wind protection and load luggage. So I think ADV motorcycling, or like those, in German we call them like travel enduros if you translate it word by word. So just like a nice big bike, usually where you can attach lots of luggage and you sit nice and comfortably. So like a old man's motorcycle is usually who you see riding these here in the Black Forest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I won't take that personally. I don't have a bike. Well, no, I think I have even more of an old man motorcycle than that. So but anyway, let's move on. On road or off road? And because I know that off roading in Germany is a bit of a problem, right?
Especially here in the south. If you go like to the eastern parts in the north around Berlin, there's obviously not as many people living as here, so you do just have more space and you don't bother anyone. But here it's pretty much impossible. There's maybe some areas in between fields where you could ride, but the chance of just meeting people with dogs or horses or on, just hikers and bicyclists is way too high, and you would always be annoying someone. So here it's definitely not possible to ride off road, especially legally.
I was doing some research yesterday,
Mm,
and because I thought I'd heard people say, "Oh, there's no TET in Germany at all," and so I just did a quick Google search: "Is there a TET in Germany?" And actually, there is. But yeah, as you
mhm,
say, it's in the far north. It sort of starts in, well, depending on which end you start at, it starts in the border with Poland and goes across the top, the north there, and then pops into that bit that joins on to Denmark and then down again and into the Netherlands. But I mean, I've driven not on a motorbike, but I've driven a car sort of round a lot of those areas, and it's very flat, which is I have to be
yeah.
careful what I say about Northern Europe and the flatness and how boring it is, because I'll turn off too many too many listeners with my judgmental comments about the flatness of the land there. But yeah,
Well, I would agree with you. I've barely ever been north of where I live, to be honest, with the motorcycle, because I just find it less appealing considering I have the Alps 2, 3 hours away from me. I never really go anywhere north.
and what about France? Because I was talking to a director who lives very close to your part of the world, actually, who is also
Mhm.
in Germany. This was a guy I met at the Toronto TMFF, the film festival there,
Oh, okay.
and he was telling me that he lives in Freiburg and he goes into France a lot because it's so convenient, and they can ride anywhere in France. Is that something that you do with your bike, or am I right in thinking that your off-road journey is sort of only just beginning at the moment?
So yeah, I do live actually right next to France. I could walk there if I wanted to. My town is like right next to the river, so I'm literally like maybe 2 kilometers away from the border. And I have been over in France, and I would say that's where I started some of the off road riding that I did, because I'm lucky to have some friends that live in the Alsace region. One of them now moved a lot more further south, so I haven't actually seen him in quite a while. But with these guys, they ride a Husqvarna 701 and a KTM 690. And then I have one friend in a town next to me. He also has a KTM 690. So we've been with those bikes and my Africa Twin in the forest, and they have shared their tracks with me. And I broke a lot of stuff and I fell off the bike a lot. But they're the kind of people, they're like, just go for it, try it. And they always help pick up the bike. So that's where I probably did a lot of off-roading and kind of discovered the fun of doing that.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the content creation experience. So, what initially drew you to the world of social media and content creation?
That's a good question. I did have an Instagram, just a personal Instagram where you share like food photos. And this was back in 2014, I think, is when I joined. So probably at the height of crazy filters and food pictures and selfies. But that was just, yeah, with friends and a private account at the time. sharing whatever from my daily life, but not spending as much time on it as now. And that's also why my name is not very motorcycle specific or very creative. It's basically just my full name, the three first letters, because my name is Julie Herta, which is my grandma's name, and then Hauser, so it's JHH, Julie, because Julie was already gone and taken when I tried to find a username. So I just kept trying until I had one that worked. So there's no special story behind it. But yeah, I just eventually got my motorcycle license and started sharing the driving school stuff with my friends. And then once I bought the bike, I think I turned it into a public account and maybe going up to 2,000 followers with people that also ride Africa Twins. Just, yeah, how it works. Like you find other people that ride the same bike. And I guess that's how it started. And I tried to find other people that shared the same hobby, basically.
To do what you do, you have to be a bit of a performer. And I wanted to ask, have you always been a bit of a performer? Like when you were a kid, where you were, oh, there's Julie performing again. Was that your thing?
No, I would say absolutely not. And I would consider myself an introvert, which probably doesn't correspond with how I look and perform online. At least that's the feedback I often get. But in real life, I would say I'm very quiet and I'm not a dancer or anything. So if I do go to a concert, it's a metal concert anyway. So I'm not like crazy dancing. So I wouldn't at all say that I'm a performer. Like, not at all. Yeah.
But this is the thing when you do something like Instagram
Mm-hmm.
or any sort of creative endeavor with a visual component, you can project yourself. You can give us a version of yourself, right? I mean, is that something
Mm-hmm.
that you're very much aware of, that there's Julie in real life and then there's Julie on Instagram, and the version you see on Instagram is just a version of me. It's not maybe the one that you necessarily meet in real life. Does that make sense to you?
So I would say yes. We definitely always have to be aware that it's just a curated version that we put up. I'm obviously sharing just mainly my motorcycle experience of life, and now it makes up a huge part of my life. So it's definitely true in that sense. And I would say I try to keep it very honest with how I portray myself. If I fall down, I fall down, I share it. I'm not trying to say I'm the best rider and never share any fails or any bad days. So I would say that what you get to see from me or what I share is honest to who I am. But obviously, if I have a super bad day, I wouldn't be like sharing it one on one on Instagram
Yeah.
unless I see perhaps that someone might profit from knowing that, it's not all butterflies and sunshine all the time.
One thing I've noticed is that humor is a big component of what you do, and it's maybe your special sauce. Are you ever concerned that your own sense of humor won't translate to an international audience?
That's a good question. So I've always been sharing my content in English because I've always had some international friends, considering I've been to New Zealand, and that's how I kept in touch with those people that are very far away. And then I used to have some American friends. So it's always been in English, and I've always just shared everything and my, I guess, style of humor. But I'm also like this in real life. So the feedback that I get from people is if they like it, they follow you. And if they don't like it, they wouldn't follow you. So I suppose everyone that currently does follow me, and it's a very international following, they do relate to my kind of humor. So I would say it works out. Yeah. If people want to follow you, they do.
And I may be getting onto thin ice here, but would you describe your sense of humor as typically German sense of humor, or?
Do Germans have a sense of humor?
Okay, you said that, not
um,
me. You said that.
I know. I'm just making fun of it. I don't know if it's a typical German. I'm not sure what typical German humor is. Maybe dry. I just like to make fun of myself and not take things too seriously. And I think that's also important, especially on social media and maybe also in the motorcycle world, because there are some people who are very serious and everything is very polished and very, you could say, perfect. And there we are again talking about like how something can be very curated. And I just try to be really honest, and I am not perfect and I don't mind showing that. And I just want to keep it as real as possible because I think people can relate much more to that. And Instagram has brought me like a lot of real life relationships and friendships. And I think by being honest and just myself online, I can actually have these real life experiences compared to being someone entirely different. Just keeping people's expectations of perhaps meeting me in real life as true as possible to who I will actually be if they meet me.
And how do you find that? I mean, you mentioned that you're an introvert, and or
Mm-hmm.
that's how you would describe yourself, and that I've seen from your Instagram account that you've been attending quite a few events this year where no doubt you are meeting people. I mean, I would definitely
Mm-hmm.
consider myself an introvert, and one thing that I learnt quite late in life is that actually what introversion, extroversion is really about. It's about the energy, whether you get it from people or whether it sort of sucks it out of you when you're with people.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm like in a big social event, afterwards I'm exhausted. I'm like mentally absolutely exhausted. Whereas extroverts are like just completely charged up by that. And after an event, they just want to keep going, going, going. They just can't stop. So coming back to my question, because it's not about me, how do you feel after those big events? Are you also pretty tired and exhausted after meeting so many people and talking to so many people, or do you find you can manage it okay?
I would say it depends. I have been lucky with some of the events that I've done later this year that I got to meet people that I have been talking to already on Instagram, for example. So getting to meet some other content creators in person for the first time, which doesn't really feel like meeting a stranger anymore because you kind of already know each other. So I would say that adds to the energy level because you finally get to interact in like real life. And then some other times, obviously, if it's dinner time and everyone's talking and not necessarily making small talk, but just having conversations, I did every now and then find myself a little zoned out, perhaps,
Yeah.
where I didn't feel like I would add anything to the conversation. So I just observed and listened, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So I suppose my face doesn't always reflect that I'm still happy to be here. But yeah, sometimes I think I'm more like a listener than active participant in the conversations.
You do have a YouTube channel,
Mm.
but you're most active on Instagram. What appeals to you about Instagram as a format?
So I think about Instagram, I like a lot that you can just, obviously, you can share story content. If I'm on the road, I can just keep people updated and share what I'm up to on a daily basis. And then, especially since the Reels format came out, there's a lot of ways for me to just make short, little fun videos. And it's, I would say, almost like a creative outlet as well to like look at what other people are doing. And sometimes you see these kind of like trends and like make your own version of it. And obviously use music and just turn all these little clips that I have into content basically, because I would say for the most part I don't go out with like a specific idea of what I want to do. I just capture something and then in the end I have all this material and I have to like work it into something. So Instagram Reels is probably what I do most, and what is also fun because I can make these little montages of me falling over with the bike and just share that with people.
Do you do all your production in your device, like in a phone, or do you do it on a laptop? And what tools do you use mainly? What are your favorite tools for creating stuff?
So I would say most of the things that you see on my Instagram, I actually just use my phone because I I often struggle with having to do stuff that involves more steps and where I have to transfer things to a different device, go into a specific, let's say, editing program, and just having it on the phone already and being able to go into the app or sometimes use CapCut, perhaps if there's specific effects I want to do. I might use something like CapCut to edit, but just being able to access everything that I have and then, put it directly into Instagram immediately is much easier for me. So I would say that probably 95% is just directly from my phone because I also have it with me all the time. And if I have an idea, I can immediately make a draft and just keep it in the app directly.
It's interesting that you say that because one of the topics that I hear a lot when talking to guests who mainly publish on YouTube is that there's
Mm.
this sort of conflict between do I edit on the road? Do I keep trying to put stuff out when I'm doing like a 2 or 3 week tour on the road? Or do I wait till I get back? The advantage of doing it on the road is that you get it done quickly. The disadvantage is that it's kind of exhausting because it takes so much work to
Mhm.
do that video post production. So, but when you're just doing the short stuff on Instagram, and if you're just doing it all on the phone, it's production is so much easier. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Um, how well do you think you know your audience? For example, and I don't mean to be too trivial, but there are a lot of videos where the cats are your main features, and then a lot of videos where the motorcycles are. And I just wonder,
Mm.
are there some cat lovers who love your videos but maybe only tolerate the motorcycle content, or is everyone there just for the motorcycle content and they're tolerating the odd cat video? So what's your sense based on the feedback you get?
So I would say most of the content I put out, like the posts and reels, they're mainly motorcycle content, but I do share the cats in the stories. And the fun thing always is that when I share my cats in the stories, I get a lot of DMs of people sending me pictures of their cats. So I do know that people definitely are also here for the cat content. And there's a lot of just people that ride motorcycles that are also into cats, surprisingly. Or at least that's the people that I get to hang out with in the virtual world. Um, so, yeah, there's definitely a lot of people that are here for the cats as well.
Mm. One other thing that I've noticed, and I know it's not unique to you, is but you, and I think it's sort of tied up with your sense of humor as well, is that
Mm.
often I see you calling out internet trolls and kind of pretty amused with some of your responses. I mean, I've heard there are sort of several schools of thought when it comes to dealing with internet trolls. Some people say just ignore it all, but obviously I'm sure you don't deal with all your internet trolls in that way. But one thing that you have done is really sort of publish how ridiculous some people are and some comments are. So why did you start doing that? Was that a very conscious decision, or is that just something that's evolved?
Well, I think I do ignore a lot of stuff. Like, I don't take everything and publish it per se. But I just think sometimes it's important to perhaps remind, especially I have almost 87% of just men following me, and then 13% women. So I think sometimes it's important to remind all the cool men that follow me that there are some not so cool men sometimes, because sometimes things are sexist comments. And then for the couple of women that follow me to also just show that it is normal to get these kind of comments, but you don't have to accept it. And you don't just have to ignore it, because some people are just assholes. And yeah, you're not responsible for them treating you badly, or just because I have an inbox doesn't mean that, anyone has the right to just text me whatever they want. And obviously I can't like publish stuff with their name, because at least in Germany that would be illegal. But I just do it to share that it exists, and that we can laugh about it, because some of them are hilarious. And people do always like to get that insight as well. It's part of the internet experience, I guess, to get comments like this sometimes.
Unfortunately, yeah. Earlier this year, you took part in something called the
Mm.
Africa Twin X Ride, which was organised by Honda Germany, or Honda Deutschland Motorrad, and it was held in the in the spring of Germany.
Yeah.
And you know why I'm laughing? Because we've just had it's been a shite summer overall. I mean,
Mm.
I've lived here for 4 years basically, and every summer's been completely different. Despite what I was saying earlier about the gorgeous ride I had on the B500 in the later part of the summer, but
Mm.
spring was pretty atrocious. And I
Yeah.
remember, I think you were posting about it on Instagram at the time. And I was thinking, oh, because, I live in Bonn and I know that was quite close to where you started. And it's like, oh, this weather's just awful. If you'd done it a week earlier, it was gorgeous.
Mm.
Um, but I wanted to ask you, what was the experience of participating in that group ride like?
So that was actually just the week before I had my very first ever motorcycle press event from Royal Enfield. It came together quite spontaneously for me, but they held a press launch of the Himalayan 450 in Sardinia. So they flew me out. I got to ride the bike. And basically, that was my first ever brand event like that. And then the week after, we had the Honda thing. And that was a really cool experience, because the people at Honda Germany, they're really nice, down to earth people. There was one guy that I knew beforehand from Instagram, so we got to meet in real life. He takes photographs for Honda, and he was there to capture, basically on camera, our experience of riding through the beautiful spring weather. And then we had a camera production team, and there were 3 other content creators as well, riding the Africa Twins. And it was just an overall super positive experience. Like, there were some really big content creators that have been doing YouTube and like this whole social media thing for over 10 years. And like, I do consider myself very lucky to so far only ever have met really nice people. And I never felt out of place or just in the wrong space. So that was a really, really cool experience. And obviously, as someone who rides a Honda and coming from like a Honda family, it was a really, really cool experience to share this rainy and very cold ride with cool people. And we were always happy in the end to go sit down in the restaurant in the evening and just complain together about the horrible weather that we endured all day long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was absolutely shocking. I remember at the
Yeah.
time. And yeah, I would say the summer didn't get all that much better.
No.
One thing I wanted to ask about the trip is, because you're doing a production, and yes, people, if you go and look on the Honda Deutschland Motorrad YouTube channel, you can see this. There's a
Mm.
two-part. I think there was sort of a north-south, east-west ride. Is that right?
Yeah, so the X basically.
Yeah, the X. Yeah, yeah. So you were in the north. Whereabouts did you start? I can't remember the name of the place.
We started from Emden, which
Okay.
is yeah, I think it's still maybe a couple 100 kilometers north from where you live, towards Netherlands, basically towards the ocean. And then we crossed all the way down, basically to go past Munich and to the Alps, but we had to cut it short because it was snowing in the Alps, and we decided to not continue any further and
Yeah.
risk getting stuck, or yeah, just getting too cold. I think the coldest we had was 4 degrees, and the rain started turning into ice, basically.
Right. And so what was it like traveling with a film crew and the whole filming process? Did you have to keep doing stop starts, ride bys, things for the filming process? Or did the camera crew sort of keep out of your way, and they sort of had to fit in with what you were doing. What was the actual process of making that film?
So we did still have to do about 300 to 400 kilometers a day of riding. So it did start quite early and had long riding days. But the production team, it's a couple, and the lady, she was in the car, traveling in the support car, and the man, he was also on a motorcycle. And then eventually, if we had sections where we would film, for example, riding shots, she would get on the back of his bike with the gimbal and the camera, and we would do like filming parts. Sometimes we would do it specifically, so stop and then basically go in a circle or just have a specific like filming session. And other times we would just have a short break for her to get on the bike, and we would do bits like that on the road while we were actually traveling. And then we did some drone shots, but overall they incorporated it like really seamlessly into our journey that we had to do from day to day.
Interesting. Is it public knowledge who that production company is, that couple?
Yeah, so they're called Rugged Frames.
I wondered if it was Rugged Frames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been doing a lot with Honda, but also with other German subsidiaries of brands like Suzuki. And
I think don't they do the Touratech stuff with Charlie Borman as
yeah,
well? Yeah.
yeah, they did the Thailand Unleashed
Yep.
and the
Yeah.
ACT films as well, I think. Yeah.
Right. Yep. That sounds familiar. Yes, I must try and see if I can get them to come on. Do they speak English? Fingers crossed. Maybe they
Yeah,
speak
yeah,
English. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. They're definitely on my radar as some people to reach out to and
yeah.
get on the podcast. Hopefully.
I think they're even from Cologne. They're not very far from you, if I'm correct.
Okay. Again, I hate to sound like an internet stalker, but I know that they're in North Rhine-Westphalia.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I've been caught out again. Yeah. Hey, it's research. It's not stalking. And just maybe the last question about that. Did you learn yourself any video production tricks from observing what they do and how they do it?
Well, I would say, especially with them, since they're not just colleagues, but a couple, that obviously they're business partners as well, and they work together, but they're just like a really good team. Obviously, if you're sitting like backwards on a bike and you're filming, like your full focus is on filming, you have to like fully trust the person that is responsible for driving you in normal traffic. So I just think being able to be really focused and concentrated and trust in your equipment and your ability to get the shots that you envision, despite the weather and whatever being outside when you're filming throws at you, is just something to look up to, and also to endure the weather, because I mean the guy on the bike, he had to go through the same cold and rainy weather as we did, but yeah, on top of just riding, he also had to make sure that both of them are safe, and that the camera equipment doesn't get wet, and just, the constant thinking of, we do have to produce material off this, we have to make the most of the situation, even though the weather is absolutely not perfect for capturing video material and sound bites, and just making sure that if we're stopped somewhere, to also get like the B-roll and the little clips of us talking that you find in that film on YouTube. Just being really organized is, I think, what I can learn most of. Yeah.
If we talk about the accounts and your hopes and ambitions for the future, I mean, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you been following a specific strategy as far as the account is concerned, the Instagram account I'm referring to here, or is that strategy evolving as time goes on? And what sort of ambitions do you have for the future? What are your hopes?
So, in terms of strategy, I would honestly say I don't have a strategy, or I didn't have a strategy so far. I've just always done, perhaps with not too much foresight, what I felt like doing or what I felt like sharing. And I am trying to perhaps professionalize it a little bit in trying to think more ahead of what I want to post and when. Obviously, this year was a crazy year in terms of just how many different opportunities I had to ride different bikes or to go different places. So I did have much different content than usual because I had all these different bikes. If I have the KTM, for example, that I had for 1 week, like I'm still posting KTM content now. And then next week, I'm actually going to pick up a different motorcycle. So I will put an end to the KTM content and then try to just keep it with the new bike, because I would say that's always an issue. People are used to seeing you on a certain bike at some point. And if I was to like switch it up all the time, I think people would get confused and not immediately recognize you if they see you in your feed, because you have such a short period of time to capture someone's attention. So it's always important to stay recognizable visually, whether that's just your face or the same helmet or the same bike. And I think I do have to like be careful to not confuse people and make sure they always recognize me no matter what bike I'm on, because I've been trying so many this year. Yeah, so the strategy is just to not lose anyone at the moment and perhaps try and see if I can get a couple more German followers, because it doesn't actually make up that much of my demographics.
Is that a language thing? Is that because of your decision to do everything in English?
Yeah, I would say that definitely adds to it. So I think Germany makes up just about 6% of my followers right now. And mainly it's people from the US. But then I also have like a huge part of people from India, which I think the whole Royal Enfield and the tour in India actually added a lot to that. But also because they all speak English. And I would say definitely if you don't talk German, you don't necessarily attract a lot of Germans, but I still do have a lot of people from Germany following me because they also speak English. And I think I once also had a comment that was like, why are you not talking German if you're German? But for me, it's not about reaching a specific demographics or necessarily optimizing it to where it might fit with what a brand is looking for, because they're often organized in like the sales structure of Germany, Switzerland, Austria, France, and Spain, Nordic countries, because the languages are similar. So it would be beneficial to have a very specific demographic that overlaps with what they're trying to sell to. But since I've never tried to be super commercial, for me, it's just people from all over the world, and that is what I would like to keep. And perhaps try more to work with international brands, just so I don't lose this totally diverse group of people from everywhere that can all come together in this one topic that we share, which is motorcycling. That's how I would like to keep it.
Mm. Okay, looking to wind up, but before we do that, I want to ask you about an interesting post that you made. So last Thursday was the 10th of October as we record this,
Mm-hmm.
and that was World Mental Health Day. And on that day, you posted a reel to Instagram drawing attention to the fact that it was World Mental Health Day. And you also made sort of an almost, I would describe it as an unusual offer. And do you want to tell us about that and what you offered and why?
Yeah, so I don't even remember how I noticed it was World Mental Health Day, but I think I saw it coming up as a date somewhere. And I just thought, especially on Instagram, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of like so much perfectionism and just, oh, I'm always happy. Oh, look at me. I'm like on a bike, just in general, of all the people that are on there as content creators. So I think it's important to just remember that everyone is human and everyone has problems. And perhaps remember that even though you see someone smiling all the time, it doesn't mean that they're super happy. And just to remember that everyone is vulnerable and you don't have to be alone with your problems. So sometimes even just reaching out to a stranger and talking about something can really help. So I like to engage with people and talk about private topics in my DMs because I hate small talk. So if someone feels they want to reach out, they can always do that. So just putting the focus on that. I'm not just like a person that's out of reach. Like you can always come to me. I'm like a real human being. And some people did reach out, and that was really nice to see that you can, despite it just being so virtual and over text, you can still come together and maybe talk about something that you don't feel you can talk about with anyone else. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I thought when I saw that, I thought really for the first time the love heart emoji reaction was genuinely the
Mm.
best. Yeah, the best response to that post and that offer, because it was I thought it was quite generous and kind of unusual for people in what you do to put yourself out there and make that offer. So yeah, I thought well done for doing that. Um, Talking about content creators, I would like to ask you if you have any favorite content creators, typically either in Instagram or the YouTube world, and what draws you to their work.
Yeah, so favorites is always difficult. So I'll try to just think of who comes to mind right now. Obviously, there's tons of people in like the motorcycling world that I find really inspiring with like the level of professional photography and videography that they put out. But it's always really hard to like name specific people. I always admire the people that do like really proper long format reels, like actual stories and short films. So someone I always think about and that I follow on Instagram, I think he's called American Baron from the US, and he does like these short films where he is basically actor, producer, cameraman. So you just see him. And he plays different people. So you always see him, but sometimes he dresses up as someone else. And he does these really long, just little videos that are made really nicely. Like the color grading is really nice. Just his framing of how he sets up the shots and the little story that he tells. And I always admire it so much because obviously it's a lot of work for like a little video, basically, and a lot of planning and execution and making sure you get the shots right because he's filming himself. So he probably has to get up a couple of times and make sure everything is placed exactly the way he wants. And that is just really admirable because he does it all by himself. And yeah, I couldn't see myself being able to produce something like that and edit it. So just it's a large account. I don't know if he has 1 million followers yet, but it's definitely up there. But it's very well deserved and earned the success that he got.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of really lovely looking stuff on
Mm,
Instagram, but sometimes I feel that some of the really nice looking stuff takes itself a bit too seriously. That's one of the
mm,
things I've always kind of liked about your work is that you take the work seriously, but not yourself, and that really comes through. And I think that's what's so appealing about your content.
mm.
Um, but yeah, when people make things look really good and also have a sense of humor, then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you won the internet today. That's really good. Yeah, excellent. Okay, final question, and it's one that I always like to ask. So, does the content creation enhance or diminish the pleasure of a motorcycle ride for you?
Good question. I think if I'm out by myself and I do ride alone a lot, that's where I come back to relying mostly on my phone, even though I have a drone. I have a Fuji X-T4 that I very often leave at home because I don't want to take it with me because it takes up space. I would have to put it in a backpack or somewhere on the luggage on the bike. And then obviously, if I want to use it, I have to get it out. So I have to stop. I might have to take my gloves off, take the camera out, do the settings and everything, set up a tripod. So quite often I think if I was really serious about using all of that equipment, it would take away from the spontaneous aspect of just being able to pull out your phone and capture something like this. And therefore, I would not enjoy writing as much. But I think that's why I rely on the phone so much, just because it allows me to quickly do something. I do have a little tripod for the phone if I want to film myself, but a lot of times it's just like filmed by hand in little clips. And so far, that's gotten me to where I am now. And I am still thinking about what to pack for my next trip for 2 weeks, but I think it's mainly going to be my phone again, just to keep luggage small and be able to do a lot while I'm out riding just by myself. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I might not even take the big camera, and not sure if I'll take the drone or not, because you always have to think about charging it. And yeah, I would say it stresses me out if I have to think of all these things on top of where do I want to go today and where do I want to sleep today. So I'm trying to keep it less stressful and reduce the amount of stuff I take with me.
Thanks so much for being my guest today, Julie. Obviously, you're all over Instagram and you've got the YouTube channel. Is there anything else you'd like to promote or tell listeners about?
I would just like to thank you for having me. This was my first podcast and a really nice experience. And other than that, I would just like to thank everyone that's listening to your podcast and maybe discovers me. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. This is where I mainly share my silly little motorcycle experiences. And to everyone that already knows me, thanks for watching and commenting and just writing to me and following what I'm up to.
Great, super. Thank you so much for being my guest today. Take care and ride safe.
You too, thank you.